Ever felt lazy, unproductive, or just have no energy to get stuff done? Or have you ever set a goal for yourself but let temptations or distractions veer you off track? If you're new here, I'm Dr. Tiffany Shelton Mariol, neuropsychologist, published author, and founder of Mod Ambition. I post every week about how to plan, manifest, and enjoy your dream life. If you're into that, please tappity tap that subscribe button. Whether you're trying to stop procrastinating, stick to a diet, work out more, or even quit drinking, whatever your goal is, if you don't have self-discipline, life can be very difficult and you'll find yourself carrying the guilt of constantly breaking promises to yourself. In this video, you're going to learn how to master self-control and harness the power of self-discipline and willpower to finally step into your season of self-mastery. Self-discipline may be the missing link to your success, and I want to give you the tools to be more disciplined. Because I know you have big goals, but sometimes it's just hard to wrestle ourselves to stay on track with these goals. Not only have I extensively studied the intricacies of self-discipline in my role as a neuropsychologist, but my life demands a high level of self-discipline to be able to juggle being a psychologist, a published author, a business owner, a wife, and a mom of two toddlers, okay? And self-discipline is an integral part of how I'm able to get so much done. The first thing you want to do is identify the culprit of your self-defeating behaviors. When it comes to self-discipline, there are a couple of things that happen in the brain in order for us to exhibit self-control and willpower. And when we find that our self-discipline is a bit faulty, it's helpful to look at what may be malfunctioning and contributing to these behaviors. But firstly, as a neuropsychologist, I want to share a little bit of brain science with you if you'll just bear with me a little bit. You may find that self-discipline is difficult for you because you struggle with a faulty prefrontal cortex, so this part of the brain. This is the front part of our brain that is responsible for things like impulse control, self-monitoring, decision-making, and reasoning. In a recent article, What You Need to Know About Willpower, the Psychological Science of Self-Control, the APA cites research examining self-discipline and stated, when presented with tempting stimuli, individuals with low self-control show brain patterns that differ from those that have high self-control. The researchers found that the prefrontal cortex, a region that controls executive functions such as making choices, was more active in subjects with higher self-control. And the ventral striatum, a region thought to process desires and rewards, showed boosted activity in those with lower self-control. So a very common disorder that affects this part of our brain is things like ADHD, and you'll see folks with ADHD struggle with self-discipline because things like impulsivity or being easily distracted gets in the way of adhering to what they've set out for themselves to do. And although ADHD is very popular in our pop culture right now, there are only about 4% of adults that struggle with ADHD officially. However, there are many disorders that can cause problems with the prefrontal cortex, including things like anxiety, substance use like alcohol and marijuana use, depression, and even things like OCD or bipolar disorder. Whatever the cause of poor prefrontal functioning, it's important to know that this is the case because then you can do things to compensate for impulsivity and poor attention using things like planning or organization and many of the tips that I'm going to share with you in today's episode. On the other hand, the culprit of your self-defeating behaviors may not lay specifically in your prefrontal cortex functioning, but more so in unconscious drives that are diverting your effort. For example, it may be that the temptation that's pulling you away from being disciplined is really soothing an underlying untreated anxiety that's lurking underneath the surface. A good example of this may be that you're trying to stick to your diet, but you keep falling for temptations to have a piece of chocolate because it soothes your anxiety that you're dealing with throughout the day. In this example, you can see how treating the underlying anxiety can help you be more disciplined with your diet. And in turn, you'll feel more successful in your goals to stick with more nutritious habits. See how that all works together. So finding the culprit, whether that be more organic brain culprits like ADHD or a mood disorder, or if you have any unconscious drives that your temptations are soothing. The second thing I want you to do is replace your need for instant gratification with falling in love with delayed gratification. And there are a couple ways that I want to offer you that you can consider to do to fall in love with delayed gratification. You can consider, how can you make the delayed reward more sexy than the instant reward? For example, if you need to sit down to do something for work, but you find yourself wanting to procrastinate, you can ask yourself, what is it about doing what I need to do right now that is more tantalizing than the temporary satisfaction of slacking off? Another way to make delayed gratification more sexy is to find find meaning in your initial goal, the thing you're trying to be disciplined about, by asking yourself, why is this goal important to me? So for instance, if you're trying to cut back on drinking alcohol before you go out with friends, you can review to yourself, why is this goal of drinking less important to me in the first place? And having that in mind before you set out for the night can help you resist the temptation to drink. Which brings me to my last point, which is this type of thinking is very important to do beforehand, not in the midst of temptation or trying to be disciplined. Instead, be really intentional preparing for being disciplined by thinking about defining why your goals are most important to you prior to getting to those moments of temptation. This is helpful because in those moments where we're struggling to have self-control, the reasonable parts of our brains are not fully functioning, like the prefrontal cortex that I mentioned earlier, and instead we're more in the emotional parts of our brains. So if you can do the rationalizing beforehand, this takes out that needed component in the moment. And I know firsthand that this works because I used this strategy to get through my PhD. So when I was studying to get my PhD, I had already obtained my bachelor's degree as well as my master's degree, and quite frankly, there are many times when I was just sick of going to school and I just wanted to be finished so I could have a real job and already be making money like most of my peers my age. It really took me to fall in love with the delayed gratification and staying very close to the reason why I was getting my PhD in the first place, for me to be able to be disciplined enough to persevere during those moments that I just wanted to give up. The third thing I want to share with you when it comes to being more self-disciplined is being very effective in goal setting and planning strategies, which have been proven to help people be more disciplined and successful. A journal article in the Perspectives of Psychology Science entitled "The Science and Practice of Self-Control" touted goal setting and planning strategies as one of the helpful ways to make self-control more approachable. Specifically, they cited a 2013 study that helped students become more disciplined and academically successful using a specific goal setting and planning strategy. Simply put, this study helped children identify positive thoughts and images about their future and convert them into effective action. They did this by having them mentally contrast their future goal with relevant obstacles of reality and create if-then plans to specify how they might overcome those obstacles. So what they want contrasted with what might get in the way with a plan to overcome those things. Compared to children in the control condition, children that applied this goal setting and planning strategy were disciplined throughout the school year and significantly improved their grades compared to the other group. You're probably wondering, how can I apply this to my own life? Well, being the psychologist that I am, I infused the Mod Ambition Planner that I created with proven mindset strategies just like these. And in the planner, there are several opportunities to not only set goals, but to plan to achieve them in a way that will help you be more disciplined, including learning from past challenges and implementing those learnings in the future. Another particularly helpful way to implement the learnings from this study comes from a technique I learned from Brendon Burchard. Now, I will say that when I first learned about Brendon Burchard, I was dragged to one of these seminars by my boyfriend, my husband now, and I was very cynical. I felt like it was going to be a lot of motivational talk, but nothing really valuable. However, I had quite a different experience at this 3-day seminar, and I learned so many important techniques to really perform at your highest level. I was also introduced to now one of my favorite psychiatrists, Dr. Daniel Amen, and had an opportunity to hear him speak at this conference, which that was really great. But the technique that I learned that stuck with me and I still implement to this day with me and my husband is we ask each other this each morning. We ask each other, what's my intention for the day? What might get in the way? And what am I going to do about it? That's something that we learned at this conference, and it has been really instrumental, and it helps you just get your mind right. You don't only set your intention, but you think about what might get in the way and what you're going to do about it. That helps you be more disciplined throughout your day because you already have seen in your mind, even if something comes up, I'm still going to do what it takes to get to my goal. Now, if you're a fan of the law of attraction like I am, you may be thinking, well, this is just going to invite negative experiences into my day. However, it actually does quite the opposite, because you're not just bringing up the obstacle that might happen, you're bringing up your ability to overcome the obstacle and seeing yourself being disciplined no matter what comes up in your way. So your mind really attunes to the fact that I have a goal in mind and I'm going to get it done, even if there's things that come up in life that might get in the way. So it's less about hanging on to the negative obstacle that might happen, but it's more about helping your brain wrap itself around and get on board with the fact that you're still going to get done what you need to get done, even if certain things come out throughout the day. If you're finding this information helpful, please smash that like button and be sure to subscribe. It really helps me keep showing up on this channel to provide you with the best information on planning, manifesting, and enjoying your dream life. The fourth thing I want to offer you when it comes to being more disciplined and mastering self-control is to make it easy to be disciplined. The truth of the matter is we only have so much willpower, and willpower really is a finite resource. It's not infinite. So things like time of day, our mood, our energy levels, and even our beliefs affect how much willpower we have at any given moment. So the easier we can make it on ourselves, the more disciplined we will be. So focus on using situational strategies that make temptations less obvious and adherence to self-discipline more obvious. Practically speaking, this means don't have any cheap food in your house if you're trying to eat well, or laying out your work clothes the night before so it's easy to just throw them on and go work out the first thing in the morning. I remember when I was a new mom, I was also writing my first book and I had a strict deadline with my publisher to finish my book on time. So I made it as easy as possible for me to be self-disciplined by setting up my laptop wherever I would pump. That way, anytime I had a breast pumping session, I also had my writing session. So just think about ways, how can you make it easy for yourself to be disciplined on whatever goals that you have set for yourself. The fifth thing I want to share with you that's really important if you want to increase your self-discipline and really walk into your season of self-mastery is self-regulation. Being able to regulate your mood, your thoughts, and behaviors is essential to being able to follow through on your promises. You're going to get dysregulated throughout the day, whether that's getting anxious about a deadline or getting upset about an email. Whatever it is, it's going to make you feel dysregulated or thrown off track, and that's just part of life, right? And being a human being, really. The key is to have tools in your toolbox to regulate yourself so that you can continue to take committed actions really towards what's most important to you, even in the face of discomfort, challenges, or difficult emotions, really. So here's some things you can consider adding to your toolbox to help you self-regulate and in turn help you be more disciplined. The first thing is a technique called diffusion. So this is when you learn to separate your identity from your experiences and from your thoughts. Kind of separate yourself and take a step back from thoughts to help yourself regulate by reminding yourself that a thought doesn't define you. Another thing that is very helpful when it comes to regulating yourself is thought restructuring. So learning to choose more helpful thoughts or learning to replace negative thoughts with positive thoughts in the face of challenging situations. You can also do things like committed action. This is a technique where you learn to accept and process difficult emotions and life events, and in the face of those things, you still commit to taking actions to moving towards things that are most important to you in life. So it's not about getting rid of negative emotions, it's more about accepting how you feel and still committing to take action towards things you value anyway. Along those lines is a technique from something called DBT, which is radical acceptance, where you're accepting life challenges and figuring out how to make the problem the solution. So how to use that situation to become better, to grow, and to evolve. Next, I want to introduce you to the idea of learned industriousness, which is the exact opposite of learned helplessness, which you may have heard of. The advice I'm going to share with you regarding these tips comes directly from an article in psychologycompass.com called How to Build Self-Discipline with Joy, Meaning, and Challenge. So whereas learned helplessness occurs when people stop trying because they've really learned that their efforts don't matter, learned industriousness occurs when you train your brain that effortful work is rewarding. So you teach your brain that effort is a good thing. And the article mentions two ways that we haven't already discussed to do this. The first way that you can teach your brain that challenge is a good thing is to practice rewarding yourself when you face challenges. The article states, think about what challenges you have enjoyed in the past or always wanted to try and start doing them. Perhaps as a child you enjoyed word puzzles muscles, or you're scared of running but like the idea of participating in your office's yearly charity 5K, or you've always wanted to learn basic carpentry, right? Use this as an excuse to make yourself do them. Complete the word puzzles on your morning bus ride. Begin a run program or sign up for a weekend beginners woodworking class. They also suggest taking time to remember times in the past when your life efforts paid off. So sitting down to really train your brain around, oh yeah, that actually worked out for me. Our brains are wired to focus on negative in order to protect us. So it takes some priming and some conscious efforts on our parts to really help shift our brains to acknowledge positive things from our past. And particularly remembering past events when you were disciplined and your efforts paid off is going to help you train your brain to lean into being more disciplined and having more self-control. If you like this episode, please subscribe or follow the Mod Ambition podcast. I've teed up the video I did on how to get work done even if you don't feel like it for you to watch next. And until next time, namaste.